Hello, listeners. This is Debashish Majumdar, and you are listening to the CHRO Mindset podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the CHRO Mindset podcast, where we bring you candid, thought-provoking conversations with top HR leaders and experts. And here's your host, Pulkit Joshi. Today, we have the privilege of hosting Mr. Debashish Majumdar. Debashish emerges as a distinguished thought leader within the FMCG and financial services sectors, armed with a degree in chemical engineering from BITS Pilani and further honed by an MBA in HR from XLRI Jamshedpur. He seamlessly blends technical knowledge with strategic acumen. His professional journey traverses across esteemed organizations, including prominent corporates like Marico, where he gained invaluable insights, and dynamic organizations like Godrej Capital, where he embraced innovation and agility. Passionate about human capital development, Debashish's focus gravitates towards talent acquisition and diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI initiatives. Debashish, thanks for taking out time to speak with us today, and welcome to the CHRO Mindset podcast.
Thanks so much, Pulkit. Glad to be here, and wish everyone's having a nice day.
Great. So let's start up with an icebreaker question, Debashish. What is one HR-related challenge or trend that keeps you up at night, and how are you proactively addressing it?
Thanks, Pulkit. I think, while there are many, one thing that I always think about is, the element of a candidate expecting something out of an organization, and are we really able to meet that when they join as an employee? So basically, how do you reduce the expectation reality mismatch? And make it more engaging, for the candidate who's joining as an employee. I've seen this time and time again that this is the biggest deal breaker for, an employee. And hence, how do I equip my HRBPs and line leaders to represent the reality on ground to our candidates so that they are, when they're signing on the offer letter, they know exactly, where they are coming to. That's point number one. Point number two, just to add to this, what we also do is, get people in our offices just so that they can experience, our ways of working and culture. And that's of extreme importance. And, while in a growing organization like ours, it's extremely, important to have people on board. What is critical to understand is what I just said. It seems fairly obvious to do and good to do. But what happens is when you're doing bulk hiring, a lot of times the elements of assessments, proper assessments, process orientation, culture fitment could go for a toss. And hence, I'm extremely careful that how I, navigate this, so that a lot of the effectiveness measures are happening, but also that the turnaround times and the, business reality is also met. On the other hand, what happens is that in a growing organization, you also have to stay relevant for your existing set of employees who spend some time with you. You can't have, people leaving you and still succeed as a growing organization. And hence, how do you still, keep relevant for that audience becomes extremely crucial. And hence, even when people are leaving you, a lot of times, reasons like better opportunity, sure, better opportunity could be a reason, but then that would not be the trigger for why the employee started to look out. It could be something like role clarity or, for example, career stagnation. And hence, in my capacity, with the line leaders and HRBPs together, we try and, firstly proactively predict, who's not that engaged. That's point number one. And even at the point of resignation, we try and figure out what is the root cause or the trigger that this person started looking out, and not simply that the person ended up getting a better offer. So I think these are a few elements, Pulkit.
Great. Thanks for that response, Debashish. Now let's talk a little bit about, how your HR journey has been. So, everybody has lessons that they have learned, right? So my one question for you is that across your career, right, what is one HR related innovation or trend that you believe has the potential to reshape the future of work?
So that's a very interesting question. careers in themselves are evolving, and I think that is one mega shift that's happening. Uh, in our earlier generation, typically across more than 30 years in our earlier generation's career, you would see that the generation would end up doing largely one or two roles. However, what is happening today is that the career cycles are becoming shorter. And typically, a career cycle would today be for about 6 to 7 years, not more than that. And hence, in a more than 30-year career span, the each employee will end up having at least 4 to 5 careers. And hence, the idea that how do you keep yourself relevant, upskill and reskill yourself, and that becomes extremely critical. And hence, possibly the shift from, let's say, past experience being given weightage, or for example, tenure in earlier organizations being given weightage, a shift from that to skills. Because whatever you need as skills today is something, half of it may not have been thought of in, let's say, 10 years before this, right? And hence, the interesting shift that I see is that a lot of organizations moving to making a skills repository and also setting something which is vertical wise. Within that as well, I see that proficiency levels being made for each of those skills, and actually educating employees on it and also measuring them on it. Uh, but I'll tell you, something that's happening at an employee level as well, right? At an employee level, they're taking ownership of their careers, which is very heartening to see. And believe it or not, they're making their skills, their own skills repository, seeing the current trends as well as predicting future trends. What will stay relevant for me, even if I'm good at it in future? And what are the new skills that I need to gain to keep myself relevant? Employees are extremely independent and are now asking organizations to that they'll do something on their own, but also that the organization should invest in them on the aspect of what they would want to do to keep themselves relevant. So I think it's quite a shift from you could say a paternalistic approach that organizations had. That we will tell you, what is the gap area, and we will suggest to you what you should do so that you can do a better current role or future role, to the aspect of employees taking ownership of it. Okay.
Great, thanks, Debashish. Now that we have spoken about innovation, right? Let's now talk about the role of HR in fostering a culture of innovation. So, a couple of questions on that. First one: how can HR professionals encourage a mindset shift towards innovation amongst employees at all levels?
Thanks, Pulkit. So I think, first and foremost, we'll have to understand what the organization strategy is. There are organizations that are built for efficiency. Let's say an Amazon is the perfect example of it. While there are organizations that are built for innovation. Let's again consider a good example. Let's say Apple. Now, what happens is the org strategy should be extremely clear and shared with all employees. Most organizations I've seen are somewhere in between on both agendas. One is their strategy very sharp, which means that do they know what are the things that they're going to do, which also means that they're clearly saying that these are the things we're not going to do. And I see that there is a gap there, which is to say that sometimes the things that they are not supposed to do is also something that they get into sometimes, and hence their proposition is not as sharp. Coming to the second element, which is clear communication of organization strategy. What is that differentiates us as an organization is sometimes not clearly communicated. I think if that is sharply communicated, I think half the battle is won. Coming to the second aspect, which is to say that now if my strategy is clear, if I'm building for efficiency, then maybe innovation is not something that I will focus on. But then if I'm building for innovation, then efficiency takes somewhat of a backseat. When we try and mix the two, a lot of times, we are not clear on what to drive. And the employees are also confused on that, because at one point of time, you can prioritize only either efficiency or innovation. I think that's my take on it. But if we are to build for innovation, coming back to your question, I think the larger thought process would be that how do you build a learning culture? Uh, how are leaders listening to external signals as well as internal employees and saying that these are the problems that we need to solve for or opportunity areas we need to solve for? That may be an industry context, that may be a customer need. Now, based on that, how are we sharing this with our employees very transparently? And also, how do we encourage bottom-up innovation so that people can suggest and get satisfaction from being heard, but also solving for what really is needed in the organization and not suggestions which do not talk to a strategy. So it's very targeted innovation is where I'm going with this. And this actually helps both the employee as well as the organization. And hence that is something that builds for innovation. A few other aspects that enable innovation, and especially for HR professionals to think about, is that are we building that safety net in terms of performance and rewards for the innovators? Are we, for example, having a culture of accepting mistakes, failing fast, learning from it, and iterating, as a process? So making a minimum viable product and then iterating our way to success, because that is, I think, the mark of a innovative organization that, let's say, we as HR and line leaders need to encourage.
Awesome. Thanks, Debashish, for those insights. Now that we have spoken about intent or innovation towards innovation, right? Let's now also talk about what skills and competencies it takes, right? So my question for you is, what according to you are the key skills and competencies that HR professionals need to drive innovation in the workplace?
Thanks, Pulkit. I think very pertinent question. Often innovation is a term that's misunderstood. It's not just an invention, but also something that is, you could say, differentiated, but that also creates business value, and that's innovation. And I think first and foremost, like HR professional, all professionals are never taught how to, build the skill of innovation. And that's definitely a gap area that corporates need to fill. For HR professionals, I think to build innovation in the organization, HR professionals would need to understand the entire business and the value creation chain, and then understand the points of pain, opportunity areas, and what are the disconnects that the employees have. If that is clear, they can build from that, and hence business understanding becomes one key skill. The second is that, how do you, listen to your employees and connect with each and every employee. These days, what happens is there are a lot of processes that HR would make and drive, and they do it really well. There are, good amount of analytics that is getting used. There are a good amount of tech that is getting used. However, and this is particularly my thought process, that there is no replacement for, employee connect, and each and every employee should be spoken to by HR. And if that is done, then you get the true picture. And once you get the true picture, then you solve for it. I think that becomes extremely critical. And hence, apart from business understanding as a skill that I spoke of before, I think what I'm getting to, whereas the other skills are, one is the analytical bent of mind. How do you look at data and draw insights from it? The elements of networking, connect, listening, empathizing becomes extremely critical. And how do you synthesize all of this and influence and present to top leadership in an engaging fashion, so that you get that buy-in to, make that change towards innovation? I think these are the, key, 3 to 4 skills that becomes extremely important.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Debashish. Now let's segue to another important topic. We're going to be talking about talent acquisition, recruitment strategies. And of course, employer branding, in my opinion, plays an extremely crucial role. So what role, according to you, does employer branding play in your recruitment strategy? And that's the first part of the question. And the second is, how do you ensure a strong brand in a competitive market?
I think great question. Godrej Capital, of which I'm a part, it was quite a late entrant in the financial services space. And hence, it was a compulsion for us to differentiate ourselves. What we did was we played to our strengths, our strengths being our Godrej legacy employer brand, along with the elements of creating a difference, building an organization ground up, which is a value proposition, along with listening and being flexible with our customers, and also the elements of being a value and culture driven organization, and the element of being fast and quick in our decision making. I think these are the elements that are strengths for us. Uh, and I think we've lived that. I think it's very important to live it, because you can't have a recruitment strategy for candidates put out on social media, and then when the candidate joins the organization, they feel that this is really not the place for them on what they've been promised. So it's very important that what you are putting on the table as your employer brand or your recruitment strategy, that speaks to the candidates, but also that your own employees experience it. I think that we're getting better with it each day, and we are being honest with what we can offer and what we cannot offer. It will always be a mix in any organization, and hence having very aligned conversations with our candidates and employees, I think that becomes extremely crucial. But also, the two key parameters that we look for in our employer brand recruitment strategies, that what can be offered to a candidate or an employee that's unique and powerful. Because if not, then you're not differentiating yourself from the industry. Uh, and on the recruitment strategy bit, it becomes important to think about what works for you in a particular setting. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you are wanting to grow by 5% versus if you're wanting to grow by 50% your headcount, your recruitment strategy will differ. Another example would be if you're wanting to grow in the same business line vertical versus if you're wanting to create something as a business vertical ground up, your strategy will differ. On the element of being a new organization, one other thing would be brand salience. Let's suppose everyone knows Godrej, but how many do know Godrej Capital? Now, within that, it becomes easier to have a brand salience for Godrej Capital in the metros. But when you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, the brand salience has to be built ground up. And that is a challenge we take up with Gusto each time we enter a new tier 2 or tier 3 city. So build for the brand salience first, have, our customers, trust you, our customers and partners trust you, and then start doing business. I think that is the flow that we, follow very minutely, and set ourselves up for success before moving on to the next city. I think that is something that has worked out for us. Pulkit.
Awesome. Thanks, Debashish. Let's now talk about aligning uh, the recruitment strategy that HR leaders must have with the overarching business goals, right? So how do you align your recruitment strategy with the business goals and the overarching objectives of the organization?
Quite interesting. I think while the overall recruitment strategy will be a broad guideline, on the ethos of the organization, it would differ, as per the need of the hour. And hence, it becomes crucial to have a buy-in of all relevant or key stakeholders before you start to hire, so that there is no disconnect. So one point would be to share learnings proactively from the past hiring that we've done, so that our recruitment strategy takes that into account. And the second would be being extremely clear that this is the strategy that we will follow, that may differ from what we've done in the past. So if these two are aligned, there aren't many points of confusion. And while it may take some time to get buy-in, but if there is alignment, I feel that time and effort is worth it, because post which execution becomes seamless and in a win-win fashion, as well as takes lesser time, which is of value to a growth-oriented organization, because you need to be very agile and quick on your feet. Okay.
Great. Thanks for that response, Debashish. Now let's talk about HR technology, right? Because that's very crucial to HR, the success of HR as a function. Um, and I'm going to ask a couple of questions and try and marry technology with performance management or recruitment, right? So first question, how does the integration of performance management tools with other HR technologies contribute to a more holistic employee experience?
Sure. I think great question again, and this is very close to my heart because my thought process is that can we have a seamless experience for an employee that the person is having with his personal apps as well. And that is the thought process with which I operate. So, for example, if me as an employee in my personal time, I am having a seamless experience using my apps. Okay, it can be, in different genres. It can be a Netflix or a WhatsApp or a LinkedIn, for example, and I am having a seamless approach and connect on it. However, if my business enterprise apps are something that is a bit patchy, or maybe one portal is not talking to the other, I have a lesser of a employee experience. And hence, I think syncing everything up to a base portal or architecture becomes extremely important. And once everything speaks to each other in an auto fashion, what then happens is data flows seamlessly. If that in an organization is done very well, then it's very easy to set up things because you have all data in a single place. Just as an example, uh, if for if you have been given goals on a quarterly basis on your performance management portal, how does that speak to the organization goals that should be clear to the employee on the portal? If that is clear in a cascading fashion, there is buy-in on the goal that what they are doing is creating meaning for the organization. Post which the review of it can also happen on the portal, and there would be frequent check-ins on it. Whatever as per your competency said as a result is reflecting as your strengths and development areas, that would also reflect on that single portal, and the employee and the manager will have a view on it. Post which the learning plan or based on the gap areas is also being made on the same portal, and hence there is a method to that madness. Uh, and then the employee also gets the buy-in that yes, this is a gap area that is impacting my current or future role, and hence I need to make some effort here to improve on that gap area and build my capability. It can't be the other way around, where let's say there is no employee buy-in on the development plan, but that has been made on the system, right? And then post which, when the feedback is given on the learning plan over the year, that then gets fed into the annual review cycle, right? Because in an annual review cycle, you'll measure both for performance as well as for capability and potential. And the learning plan has a lot to do with it. Also, the element of careers, which is that how do you have a career architecture in place so that the employee exactly knows that where he lies in terms of the career aspiration that he has. So, for example, there is a role that the employee aspires to, and what are the character sets and proficiency level or competencies that are required to do that role, and where is he on that? Because once he shares that aspiration for that particular role, then the organization can always invest in whatever are the gap areas for that future role, right? So I think all of this comes together, very seamlessly. And for the organization, it helps because the organization now has let's say a CEO or a CHRO has a single click view on the succession planning elements, which are my critical roles and who are my critical people. And also the mapping of are my critical people sitting on the critical roles. I think then it builds in, the entire element of both the employer expectations as well as the employee experience quite well.
Great response there. Thanks, Debashish. Let's continue to discuss technology further, and let's now talk about AI, right, which is the talk of the town. And we're going to be addressing one question related to recruitment. So, how do you address potential biases in AI-driven recruitment tools to ensure a fair and diverse candidate selection process?
I think this is an interesting one because, as people and not just HR, we understand AI and ML to a lesser degree. I think that understanding, of course, is the development area which needs to be improved for most people. Um, but also, my take on that would be that AI or ML is an enhancer. I am biased. It would enhance my bias. If I am unbiased, it would enhance that quality as well. So it's an enhancer, and hence the input that goes into uh, the AI ML algorithm becomes extremely crucial, and that goes into the elements of ethics and fairness, and hence before that algorithm is made, or at important frequencies, let's say once a year, an independent committee should be made to look into whether the algorithm is unbiased and whether it is relevant to the needs of the organization at that point of time. I think once that is done, it becomes an enhancer for that same quality, and it helps the organization and the HR employees do better recruitment, because it sifts for someone who's genuine versus someone who's not. It also sifts very clearly of what is required in the job description and what is there with the employee, and going a step ahead and saying that, is this is this something that is only written in the employee's resume just for the sake of it, or does the employee have something demonstrated, so that we know that the proficiency level is really where it is reflecting on the employee's resume. And I see a lot of use cases for this. For example, one use case is that all fact-based and all listening can be done by a AI ML chatbot, for example, or a voice bot. And hence, it releases bandwidth of the line leaders and HRPP who can then get into empathetic and conversations and career conversations, which is a much more advanced conversation because the initial set of conversations are done. And interestingly, what I've noticed is because, a chatbot or a voice bot is seen as unbiased and neutral and non-judgmental, a lot of employees, whichever organizations have this, a lot of employees are actually much more confident of sharing, their feelings and sharing their thoughts to an AI ML, chatbot rather than to humans. So I think, the idea is to get to know more about it and how to partner in the journey, between a human and let's say a chatbot.
Thanks, Debashish. Thanks. What a lovely way to sort of look at this problem. One last question before we wrap up this awesome conversation. Any piece of literature, book, documentary, anything that has shaped your leadership journey?
Pulkit, I think a couple of books/series. On the book side, I would say there is this book by Ben Horowitz. It's called "What You Do Is Who You Are," and I think it distills a lot of good learnings. From that, I'll share a couple of them. The first is the element of culture. I think what he speaks about is that once you've defined the culture, it's also important to understand the subcultures that form in a larger organization. And also, once you have created the culture, or once you have said that, okay, this is going to be our culture, you have to stick to it. Which also means that if you see a deviation to your values and culture, you have to correct it then and there. And if you don't do that, what happens is then that becomes the new way of working or standard. You cannot go back in time and change it. And hence, it's very important to be alert for and not overlook for these values violations. I think that becomes extremely important as a learning. I think the other is that in smaller organizations, the leaders reflect the values or culture of the organization, and hence it becomes important to have the right leader set and also coach the leaders who you have towards the values awareness and living the values. In a larger organization, it somewhere gets better because you do have values evangelists, you do have a lot of things done through training, and hence it automatically seeps in in many ways. I think the other series which I have liked and it has a profound impact on me is the series. It's a law series. It's called Boston Legal. quite fun, but also, great debate. I think that is an element, as a feature that I carry with me, which is to say that know your subject, but also be open to learn about others' point of view on the same. And the best idea or thought should win, which is logical. Does not have to be your idea, right? So I think those are the elements that I carry with me through the book and series.
Thanks, Debashish. I will try and see how I can add that book to my libraries. Does sound very interesting. Debashish, thank you for sharing your insights and expertise on the CHRO Mindset podcast today. I wish we could have continued this discussion for a few more minutes, but it had to come to an end. I love the extremely structured approach you took and recommended to solve some of the most pressing HR challenges that the leaders are facing in today's economy. It was amazing to have you on today's podcast. Thanks once again for taking out time to speak with us today.
Thanks so much, Pulkit. Take care.
To all our audience, a sincere thank you for your continued support. We trust you enjoyed today's episode on the CHRO Mindset with Debashish Majumdar. Stay engaged for future episodes as we delve deeper into the realms of strategic HR and modern day workplaces. Thanks for listening to the CHRO Mindset podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review. Join us next week for another insightful conversation with a top HR leader. And if you have any questions or feedback, reach out to us on social media or via email. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next week.